11:30 a.m. on 31st October, Mahua Moitra will appear before the Parliament's Ethics Committee. Sources say most MPs in the Ethics Committee are of the opinion that the charges against the TMC MP Moitra are serious in nature. This after extensive hearing took place with Advocate Jai Dehadrai, who is the whistleblower in the case, deposing before the committee. It was followed by the main complainant, BJP MP Nishikant Dubey, recording his version. Ethics Committee has expanded its scope of investigation and will be writing to the IT Ministry and the Home Ministry asking for information. Meanwhile, Mamata Banerjee came out all guns blazing against the centre in another case, but had no word to offer for her MP. So the question that we ask on the show tonight, is this end game for Mahua Moitra? First the story, then the experts.
अभी कमेटी ने तय किया है कि महुआ मित्रा को बुलाया जाए, वो अपने पक्ष में कहा जाए, आगे जो कमेटी तय करेगी उस हिसाब से निर्णय होगा।
Lok Sabha Ethics Committee summoning Mahua Moitra on the 31st of October at 11:30 a.m. The committee, led by Vinod Sonkar, is probing the cash for query charge against the TMC MP. The 15-member committee, which began its probe today, first recorded the statements of lawyer Jai Dehadrai and BJP MP Nishikant Dubey. It all begins with this letter of BJP MP Nishikant Dubey to Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla, in which he levelled cash for query allegations against Mahua Moitra. His complaint was based on a letter by Supreme Court lawyer Jai Dehadrai. Dehadrai spoke for almost an hour, giving his statement before the committee.
जो भी मेरे से पूछा गया था वो मैंने सच कमेटी के सामने मैंने पेश कर दिया। कोई डिस्प्यूट नहीं हो रहा था। सब जितने भी मेंबर्स थे उन्होंने मेरे से बहुत अच्छे से और कॉर्डियली मेरे से सवाल पूछे। जो कुछ भी मेरे से पूछा गया उसका मैंने आंसर दे दिया।
मेरे सामने सभी नॉर्मल थे और सबों ने बहुत ही सम्मान और प्यार से प्रश्न पूछे और सभी प्रश्नों के जवाब अच्छे से दिए। उन्होंने कहा कि यदि आवश्यकता पड़ेगी तो आपको बुलाएंगे तो हम लोग जाएंगे। सवाल ये है कि चोर महुआ है या नहीं है, चोर कौन है नहीं है, मैं तो स्पेसिफिक नाम लेके कर रहा हूँ कि चोर महुआ है या नहीं है, उसका फैसला एथिक्स कमेटी करेगी।
The Ethics Committee is looking at four main issues. Do Mahua actions amount to contempt of House? Is Mahua guilty of breach of privilege? Do Mahua's acts amount to criminal offence under 120A of IPC? And is there evidence that Mahua took cash to ask questions?
According to sources, allegations against Mahua are very serious in nature. The final report is likely to be submitted to the Speaker as soon as possible. Sources also say that many members quoted the Pawan Bansal Committee of 2005, which submitted its report in the cash for query scam in just a matter of 2 weeks.
The Ethics Committee will also write to the IT Minister as well as the Home Ministry. On Tuesday, Information Technology Minister Ashwini Vaishnav wrote to Nishikant Dubey over the alleged sharing of her parliamentary login by Mahua. He said the National Information Centre, which cooperate with the Parliamentary Ethics Committee, is investigating the matter.
कमेटी ने निर्णय लिया है, इसमें IT मंत्रालय और गृह मंत्रालय को चिट्ठी भेज के उनका विवरण भी उपलब्ध कराने का निर्देश कमेटी को दिया है।
Mahua Moitra faces charges of taking bribes to ask questions in Parliament. She is accused of asking questions on the behest of businessman Darshan Hiranandani. He allegedly gave Mahua rupees 2 crore in 2021 to ask questions defaming Prime Minister Modi as well as the Adani Group. It was found that the 61 questions Mahua asked, 50 were related to Hiranandani's interests. Mahua is also accused of sharing her user ID and password of her Lok Sabha account with Hiranandani. This is a breach of parliamentary privileges. Meanwhile, TMC has distanced itself from Mahua Moitra. Amid this massive row, a usually very vocal Mamata Banerjee remained silent. At her first press interaction after Bijay Dashmi, she refused to speak out in support of Mahua and didn't take any questions from the press either. With Marya Shakil, Prashant and Saurabh Gupta, Usama Shah for NDTV.
Joining me on the show, Nalin Kohli, who's an advocate of the Supreme Court, Subhabrata Bhattacharya is a senior journalist. We have Ashwini Dubey, advocate of the Supreme Court, Kapil Sankla, lawyer at the Supreme Court, and Vivek Agnihotri, former Secretary General of Rajya Sabha. Before I bring in the lawyers and get their viewpoint, I want to understand from you, Mr. Agnihotri, now that the Ethics Committee is writing to the IT Ministry and to the Home Ministry, do you think that there is enough evidence prima facie for them to seek more information with regards to the login ID and password, about which Darshan Hiranandani himself has accepted, and the other aspect which has been alleged by Nishikant Dubey is that is there the larger issue of national security?
That will depend on what the response they get from the IT Ministry and the Home Ministry. And in getting evidence on these issues, the committee may even invite the officers of the Home Ministry and IT Ministry to appear before it with all the documents and records and rules and procedures. If there is any breach of their own procedures and practices. So it will all depend on what is the response from the two ministries in order for the committee to decide how to proceed further.
And the fact that in its very first hearing, after recording the statements of Jai Dehadrai and Nishikant Dubey, the committee has decided to call Mahua Moitra. What does it actually mean?
That is part of the procedure. Once you have heard the persons who have made the allegation, you have to hear the other party.
Okay. But the fact that she has been called in the very first hearing is what I want to understand from you.
Not very first hearing. First hearing was today.
Yes.
She has been called on 31st.
Yes. So after recording the first round, they have decided to call the person against whom the complaint
Correct.
is.
Let her present her case.
Okay. Kapil Sankla, illegal gratification is the question before the ethics panel. She has the right to cross-examine the complainant is also what, the sense is. When we look at this case, and particularly the affidavit which has been submitted by Darshan Hiranandani, and also the view that is coming in from this panel that Darshan Hiranandani, because he has submitted his affidavit, he did not appear before the panel. How are you looking at the processes?
Well, you see, the case, as I understand, is getting curiosier and curiosier by the minute. Let me understand and put it in perspective for the viewers as well. There is an allegation that she took money, which is...
Kapil, I'll try and fix that line with you. In the meanwhile, let me take that question to Ashwini Dubey. Ashwini, go ahead.
Yes, Marya, there are two aspects. One, so far as the four questions which in the opening statement your correspondent says, there are four questions before the ethics committee. One question is that do Mahua Moitra is guilty of contempt of the parliament? Is there any breach of privilege of Article 105 of the Constitution of India? Is there any offense? Suppose tomorrow if ethics committee reaches to the conclusion, yes, the money trail is involved, the money is involved, the gift has taken, and there is a larger nexus in order to give economical benefit to a person sitting abroad, and in order to give economic loss to a company.
Actually, but how will the ethics committee actually come to that conclusion about the nexus? Because that is part of the affidavit of Darshan Hiranandani, but is that really the domain of ethics committee?
Ethics committee have a right to examine Darshan Hiranandani and may take the Darshan Hiranandani's statement if the ethics committee wishes on virtually also. If they may ask Darshan Hiranandani to appear virtually, this is one. Second, Darshan Hiranandani in his 3 pages affidavit have categorically stated that there was a login ID access available with him. The questions were being asked by him, and also on a news channel, Times Now, I guess he has appeared and have admitted in a TV channel that yes, I had then access to the login ID. Certain questions were asked by me so far as the agreement with respect to some Indian oil deal which was about to happen. Those questions in order to attack a particular Indian economic organization, and also in 3 pages affidavit, he has not denied that what he has stated is wrong, where there was any undue pressure, there was any force, any allurement, or any pressure by any external or internal forces. So his statement of the affidavit is prima facie proved beyond any doubt, unless and until tomorrow, if Mahua Moitra wants to cross-examine Darshan Hiranandani, Mahua Moitra has a right legally to ask him to appear in the witness box, and if he wants to appear, he may appear, or he may also say that whatever I have stated in my affidavit, that prima facie is correct, that may be admitted as an evidence. And if Ethics Committee says no, still we want you to examine, he may appear virtually. So let us see what the mode and manner of the examination Ethics Committee decides.
Okay.
That would exclusively is the domain of the Ethics Committee.
That's
but
right.
Here the larger question is the nexus which needs to be examined, because the
So who will
access to
examine
log-
that nexus, Kapil Sankla? Because if you look at the affidavit of Darshan Hiranandani, he is talking about wheels within wheels. That he did such certain things because Mahua Moitra wanted to target the Prime Minister, and she used the route of Gautam Adani. Then there are role of certain MPs. Then she was in touch with certain sections of press abroad. And if you look at the pattern, all that clearly seems to be unfolding.
So there are two straight answers to that. One is as far as conspiracy is concerned. There seems to be a case of larger conspiracy, where, as you rightly said, there are wheels within the wheels. And there are queries within the queries and illegality within illegality. So one is cash for query that she did, which even now in 2017, the Honorable Delhi High Court has stated that charges may be framed for Prevention of Corruption Act. 2007 Supreme Court upheld in similar cases against 11 politicians who had gone to the Honorable Supreme Court challenging their expulsion. So as far as that is concerned, that is the first part. Then the second part is even more dangerous, that she gave access to a person who was not a part or vetted by the parliament and was not a part of the government legislative machinery. And he has on an affidavit stated so, which is a very serious thing. And as far as the cross-examination is concerned, let us say that she can inquire or put queries or put questions, because cross-examination then becomes a much more stronger word. And therefore, at this moment, the affidavit stands good as it is, because the affidavit is inculpatory, which means that he said, yes, I did it. And he admitted his guilt to an offense that took place. The third, of course, very importantly, is that she was in touch and there was a malified intention to malign a politician. And for that purpose, she not only took money, but also had access to certain information and was diverging certain information. So all of these are very serious allegations. And her defense in the entire thing is, so to say, very dubious. Well, she raises certain queries against the politician who came forth and informed that such and such illegality is taking place. Then she raised allegations against his lawyer, saying that they were in a personal relationship, which and therefore he had a personal vendetta. Then the matter goes to the court, where his lawyer, it turns out, had contacted the other lawyer and tried to barter a deal. And there comes Henry the dog, which is supposed to be the quid pro quo. So it's a very interesting case. And as you rightly said, there are wheels within the wheels because there are systematic illegality. The question here is...
Yes, but the Ethics Committee doesn't really have the mandate to ask or refer the matter to, say police or the CBI. That can be done only after the Ethics Committee submits its report to the Lok Sabha Speaker, then the view of the Parliament is taken. But there is also this question about whether this case should have been sent to the Privilege Committee or the Ethics Committee. On that question, I'll bring in Nalin Kohli. You know, which committee should it be? Because which is the right forum to look into these allegations, Nalin?
Either of the two, whether it is to be the Privilege Committee or the Ethics Committee, that would be decided by the Speaker or the Speaker's office. Let's not forget that the complaint was essentially by a parliamentarian, in this case, Nishikant Dubey. He has sent that complaint based on information that he has received from an advocate. That information basically points out that approximately some 60 plus questions were asked by Ms Mahua Moitra as in her capacity as a parliamentarian, and those questions primarily relate to one particular business group, which is the Adani Group, almost some 50 odd questions out of 61. So therefore, there is a certain pattern to those questions. What further emerges, and then eventually we have an affidavit to that extent coming from Darshan Hiranandani, pointing out that there was a sort of a professional meeting at one point between him and Ms Moitra, wherein thereafter there were demands for expensive gifts. Those were complied with, and his business interests seemed to be pursued in that process. So at the end of the day, when the questions of ethics of a parliamentarian arise, you have to bear in mind she is a people's representative, the representative of people. She is functioning in that capacity as the representative of citizens in parliament. She is using the forum and the floor of House of Parliament to ask questions that are meant to be to serve the interests or the welfare of people at large, the citizens at large, her constituencies, or the interests of the country. She or any parliamentarian cannot be asking questions that serve the business or the personal interests of either her or of another individual or a business group. And if that is being used to further a political agenda, which is target the Prime Minister or target the government, by using this personal or business interest in that for a quid pro quo, in a sense, in trying to receive some gifts or etc., or developing a relationship based on receiving expensive items, then it is questionable and certainly has to be investigated by one committee or the other, in this case, the Ethics Committee. Is this what a parliamentarian is supposed to do? The same question came up in 2005 when the cash for questions was asked. Then there was a camera that saw that parliamentarians were accepting cash. The committee at that time took action within a period of 2 weeks, recommended their disqualification. Now, Ms Moitra will have an opportunity to obviously give her version of the story, but the fact of the matter is, till date, there is no version from her side. All there is questions being asked about the people who have complained against her.
But Nalin, since you talk about 2005, I want to understand from you that in 2005, there was the sting operation, which was visible evidence. In this case, where do you think the evidence will come from?
Marya, we need to pause. We need to understand that the parameters of this procedure are very different to, say, a criminal law. This is not an investigation by a police or a police agency or an investigative agency. This is not before a sessions court or an NIA court or a CBI court or any other criminal court. This is not before a normal court of law in terms of civil law. In a criminal case, it would be beyond reasonable doubt. It would need to meet the test of all evidences. It would have to be completely beyond reasonable doubt to hold someone guilty of an act that is punishable under criminal law. In a civil court, it would have to be preponderance of probabilities. What is available, including circumstantial evidence, and what is the preponderance of probabilities against the person who's an accused? This is neither of the two. This is before a committee of parliament. There are privileges that parliamentarians enjoy by virtue of having taken the oath as a member of parliament and of functioning within the precincts of the parliament and beyond it in that capacity. This committee is part of the parliamentary procedure. If a parliamentarian has privileges, including the privilege of asking questions, of demanding answers, then that parliamentarian is expected to function in a certain code that is correct and expected from a parliamentarian. That privilege of asking questions for the welfare of people through the house of which you are a member cannot be to further a personal business interest or the business interest of another or target the business interest of a third party.
Okay. So, Subabrata, today was also the day in which Mamata Banerjee addressed a press conference. And for a leader who has always bagged her party men, whenever we have seen those allegations being, and arrests and interrogation by various agencies of her ministers, she has backed them, supported them. Why was she silent this time around? And why is she silent this time around?
Today, Mamata was chagrined because of ED raids at the house of a former minister, not even a sitting minister, the former food minister on this PDS scam over there. And I would say that her and prior to today's presser, her party's silence on the matter is intrinsically perhaps an affirmation of the charges. Because if the Trinamool Congress felt that there was pitch hunting going on Mamata, as some people are trying to suggest, then they would have gone to the rooftops and shouted about it. Mamata decided to not even take questions at her press conference today because she wanted to avoid this. Now, let us not miss the woods for the trees. Let's not miss, because I would like to point out two things. One is, everybody is saying about cash for query. Hiranandani's affirmation and prior to that, Dehadrai's charge is that Ms Mahua Moitra had shared her parliamentary password with Mr. Hiranandani, thereby allowing Hiranandani, a total outsider, to frame questions and submit it to the Lok Sabha Secretariat, who accepted it prima facie as coming from a member of Parliament. So people are talking about compromising national security. That's not national security. Mahua Moitra has compromised the Parliament's sanctity and thereby the honor of the Republic of India. And that's a very serious charge. I think the Ethics Committee ought to frame a fifth charge also. That did she compromise the sanctity of Parliament? Because this is a grey area. Nobody has talked about it so far. Can a member of Parliament start sharing the password with the ambassador of China over here, so that the Chinese ambassador or the Pakistani High Commissioner can start framing questions on our foreign policy? It amounts to the same thing. So therefore, Trinamool's silence today is in effect an affirmation of
Okay.
the
Okay.
charge.
I have just enough time for the final comment from the two lawyers here. Ashwini Dubey, coming to you first, and then the final word to Kapil Sankla. You know, this is for the first time an MP is facing the charge of giving access to her login ID and password, because this entire digitization is also a new process. So, is there a rule then, as it is being discussed, that MPs cannot give access to their login ID and password?
That is what the breach of privilege is called for. That is what the definition of privilege is defined. See, an MP mortgaged the country's security for some money. Parliament IDs were opened from Dubai. At that time, the MP was in India. The entire Indian government, the Prime Minister of the country, the Finance Department, the central agencies are on the NIC portal. So here, you cannot sell your constitutional privilege for cash and gifts and for certain monetary benefits. And that too selectively targeting a business rival by a business rival sitting abroad, and that too tomorrow that business, the person who had asked questions, allegedly who had asked questions, that will tomorrow, when the IT minister will provide the evidences that yes, IP addresses were obtained, after IP addresses will come. It is not difficult to prove. But the question, the sale of constitutional privilege, it is not only the constitutionally wrong, but the legally, morally, ethically wrong. And
1 minute now, 1 minute now to Kapil Sankla. Kapil Sankla, quickly, the question certainly is that morally, ethically, as it was being pointed out, legally as well. Right. Here is a member of parliament who's facing questions on all fronts.
Right. Let me just say this very, very simply, that your privilege is, if you get a physical key to an entrance to your office, you cannot hand over that key to a third party. Your virtual key is your access to the site. I can hear you. Yes.
Go ahead, Kapil. We can hear you loud and clear.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So your access to your office would be the key, should you be privileged enough to get that key, a physical key. Your login ID is also a virtual key. Should you hand over it to a third party, the repercussions are obvious. And here the repercussions could be data theft, illegal access, illegal manipulation, etc., etc. Now, when you actually draw that parallel, you understand how dangerous it is and how illegal it is to grant access or hand over the access or give the key to a third party who is not authorized or allowed to be there.
All right.
And therein answer, and that is where the criminality lies.
All right, Kapil Sankla, appreciate your time. Ashwini Dubey, Subhabrata Bhattacharya, Vivek Agnihotri and Nalin Kohli, thank you so much. Of course, now the focus shifts to 31st when Mahua Moitra will be appearing before the Ethics Committee and recording her statement. A story we'll continue to track very, very closely. That's all from me. Thanks so much for watching.